What is my approach to mindset development at different age levels? Well, the first approach, and this goes to anything you're going to teach, but even more so for mindset, you have to model the behavior as a coach. You have to truly believe in whatever mindset you're trying to teach your players. And my guess is, by the way you frame this and the popular sort of context of the word mindset, you're talking about a growth mindset. So let me sort of define how I see some of these terms, because I see some of this getting a little misleading at times, or almost the definitions are getting a little bit muddled. So Carol Dweck called a growth mindset basically this in her research: the belief that abilities are not fixed and they can be changed over time. That's kind of it. And sometimes this gets blurred with a positive mindset, some sort of optimism, like, oh, I can do it, or I can do this. And sometimes it gets blurred with having a good attitude or some other things. And you're free as a coach, you can define it however you want. But if we're talking about something like growth mindset, what you really want to hone in on is that category. Abilities are not fixed, they can be changed. So as a coach, you got to model that. First of all, with yourself. Are you displaying the work ethic and the desire to change yourself as a coach? I think one of the most powerful things that sometimes the players can see is the coach is working to be a better coach. And clearly you guys are. You're seeking out additional coaching opportunities. You're asking me questions about how you can get better as a coach. Okay, so you're modeling that behavior for your players. First of all, for yourself. Second of all, in the actions and how you deal with the team. So if you're asking them to believe in the concept of a growth mindset, but you have somebody who struggles at passing in the beginning of the year and they never get to pass, and you stick them in this situation where you're showing by your actions, it doesn't matter what you say, you're showing by your actions that you don't believe this person can change their initial ability, then how are your players going to believe any different? So you model it with yourself, you model it with your interactions with your players. That, I would say, that's probably 80% of it. And even if you never sit them down and have a lesson about what growth mindset means, or learning science, or anything like that, if you model that for yourself and you show it with your actions, that's most of the battle. Now, if you want to talk about how, okay, I'm already doing that, how can I teach them, how can I go a little further? Okay, I think that's great. Here are some things that you can do. You can have a little bit of a mindset talk before practice. Oftentimes, as club coaches, your gym time, your core time is extremely precious. It's expensive for the club director to get you the gym time, and maybe you get only 4 hours of practice a week. You really don't want to waste any time you have on the court. Sometimes it can be good if you ask your players to get there a little before. Say you have a 17 and under team and they practice at the late slot while the younger teams are practicing. Hey, get there 20 minutes beforehand, have your stuff on, have your shoes on, have your knee pads on so we can hit the court running. But we're going to do a short mindset lesson. And generally with this kind of stuff, shorter is better, and more concise and fewer topics is better. Don't teach them everything about mindset and everything about brain science and motor learning in 1 3-hour sit down, because they're gonna not hear most of it. Just first of all, sit them down 15 minutes. Hey, here's what a growth mindset means. It means you have the ability that you have the opinion that abilities are not fixed, they are changeable. Okay, so just define it for them. This is what that means. And it's really good when you're presenting this stuff if you can, rather than have it come from you, this is what I think about growth mindset, you say, here's this information I found from this book, or this expert, or this Stanford professor, and you're sharing it with them. A lot of times that works better for this kind of stuff, then the player's always hearing it from the coach, always hearing it from the coach. Because just sometimes you kind of go around it, and it's almost like you're on their side. Hey, here's this new information I found out about mindset that can help athletes, and I'm going to help you learn it. Here, this lady named Carol Dweck, she did all this research. She found out how we can improve our abilities faster. I'm going to help you learn it. So if you present it that way, I think it's good. And just the one thing that I urge you to do is don't be afraid to be a little corny with it, because sometimes the growth mindset lessons seem a little corny. For example, you might do an activity where you reframe your self-talk. An example of a fixed mindset self-talk is, it's too hard. An example of a growth mindset reframe is, this is hard, but I can learn from it. And those things sound corny, especially to 15, 16, 17-year-olds. So you know what? You just embrace it. You say, hey, I know this sounds a little corny, and you guys can laugh at big corny coach over here, but we're still going to do this activity because I think it will help you out. And what that does is, for the teenagers, then they can laugh about how corny it is and sort of protect their fragile teenage ego, but then they can still get the lesson from it, because they will still see the value in the lesson. And I can tell you, I've done some of these little mindset lessons, and again, you keep them to 10, 15 minutes. You just teach one little thing. And I've had players email me and say, hey, you know what, when you were doing that, I thought it was really corny. And then later at that practice, I actually thought about that growth mindset lesson in my head while I was doing it. So thank you. So don't be afraid to make it corny. You don't need to be cool when you're teaching the growth mindset. And a lot of times when teaching teenagers anything, you think it's not sinking in, but a lot of times they're hearing it. So so I guess the conclusion of some of this stuff is, hit it with your actions and hit it a little bit before almost every practice. Incorporate it just a little bit. Don't beat it over the head with them. Share outside information. So it's not you have to learn this because I'm the coach, I said this. It's, I had this outside information, I'm sharing it with you, I'm going to help you learn it. And just keep hitting it over and over again, and you'll be surprised at how much it sinks in.